And away we go. It's Dan Strafford, Dave Lochran. I still don't have a name for this podcast.
Who is it?
It's Dan Strafford and Dave Lochran. Yeah, that's it. It's us. That's what it is. You get Dan and Dave here on this Friday morning on the Awesemo podcast. It was previously known as the Night Shift. There are some names out there that were bandied about. Don't know that anything's been decided, but we'll bring that to you once it's released. We are here to talk about some quick Major League Baseball thoughts. We do have 4-game playoff slate that we can talk about. It's a long day of a 2:05 start and then the final game out on the West Coast. So that will be a fun one to track. And we do have the NFL on the weekend, so we'll get Dave's takes on some of the NFL. You did have three fellas talking football on Thursday night. You do have...
It's a good show. Definitely check that out on YouTube.
I always enjoy the three of you talking, and a good one over there on YouTube. Probably catch it on Periscope, too, if you are on Twitter. And then, of course, Dave's still rocking over on Sirius when they permit him to be on. No, of course. Still 5 to 7 Saturday, Sunday? Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
There it is.
Yes,
so
sir.
On a show that you can find by searching the former company we work for. But anyway, we can continue here talking about this quickly, the 4-game slate, and then talking some NFL. Have some takes here on top plays and some of the guys to keep an eye on when it comes to injuries. Obviously, playoffs are here. We're going to have mostly aces on the mound. Pricing is intriguing here on DraftKings, where you do have Verlander at $10K, Sale at 9.6, Kluber is 8.6, Kershaw. Yeah, so obviously DraftKings recognizing smaller slate, also playoffs. A lot of these pitchers don't go as deep as they typically do because of managers really going to the bullpen early. J Happ is at 7.7, Sanchez, Chacin. The fact that Julius Chacin is starting a playoff game is mind-blowing.
Anibal Sanchez.
Yep, both of them. And then Tyler Anderson is 4,800 on this slate against Milwaukee. Don't want to get too deep here because obviously it is playoffs. It is pitchers who may only throw 4 or throw 9 because these are all aces at the top end who could have gigantic outings. Quick first look here. If you had to pick 2 pitchers on a site like DraftKings, who are the 2 names that jump out at you? Where would you go to at least start some roster construction here?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, right? Houston and Cleveland, you have Verlander and Kluber, and then Houston offense and Cleveland offense, which doesn't make things very easy. It's really quite tough. And then you have Clayton Kershaw at 8,000. You talk about how deep these pitchers are going into games. So that's the tough thing because it's like, yeah, you expect some of them not to throw as deep, but if they're lights out,
right, then
they're probably going to, right? It's really tough. Let me give you an example here. Right now it's almost 11 o'clock on the East Coast. Dodgers and Braves are in the bottom of the 7th inning, and Hyun-Jin Ryu has thrown 7 scoreless frames with 8 strikeouts. There you go, right? Like he's thrown 7 innings.
He's over 100 pitches too. How about that?
Exactly. And guess what? First time all year.
Yep.
First time all year that Ryu's gone over 100 pitches. So I don't think you're going to see any type of leash on Kershaw. I think at that price tag, you have to have some interest. I know he, in terms of upside, hasn't been stellar, but also from a matchup standpoint, I just think this Dodgers team, I wouldn't be surprised to see him sweep the Braves. Braves back in the playoffs for the first time in a while, young squad. Dodgers in the playoffs every year, an experienced team. Kershaw. The question is, do we get playoff Kershaw?
That's always the question, right? It's always the one you have to have. Listen,
playoff Kershaw, for anyone wondering that's not familiar with playoff Kershaw hasn't been particularly stellar. But most of us don't. I joke, it's not something you really buy into. I think Kershaw is a solid play there. I mean, you're not playing Anibal Sanchez. It's not crazy to think Julius Chacin could have a decent game. He's very good against righties. It's just tough to stomach that when you have guys like Verlander, Sale, Kluber, and Kershaw. I'll just say this much. Of the expensive guys, like of the Kluber, Sale, Verlander, I already mentioned Kershaw. I think that price is just too solid. I think I'd probably lean Chris Sale here. It's tough, but from an upside standpoint, we know the Yankees do have some strikeouts in this lineup. I mean, could he get beat up? Yeah, but there's a ton of Ks. If you're the right pitcher, which Chris Sale is, he is a lefty, but I don't know. It's tough for me to stomach rostering Kluber. And then Verlander, like, he's just so good and consistent that if you were to play Justin Verlander, I don't think anyone were to blame you. Oddly enough, he hasn't made a single start against the Indians this year. It's a good Indians team, but I think I'd risk the upside with a slightly cheaper Sale, but they're all very good pitchers.
If we go with history, J.A. Happ has been very good against the Red Sox in his career, being dubbed the Red Sox killer at present. Listen, this is a Red Sox lineup that obviously is very deep, has a ton of right-handed power, but on the year, it's a Red Sox team that struggled more against lefties than they did against righties, and a slugging below 400 against lefties, an ISO of just 142, weighted runs created plus of 90. So middle of the road, I'll take Kershaw and Happ as my two pitchers here and be more than happy going from there. I think, listen, if you're playing playoff baseball, you're hedging some bets here. You're moving around.
I'm not,
right. Sure. Clear, yeah, absolutely. You're hedging some bets. You're building some different lineups. Probably taking Tyler Anderson swing here and saying, all right, I'll go cheap with both my pitchers and then stack the best offense pieces I can get. So have some fun with it. Enjoy it. And sit back and watch a full Friday of baseball, which is pretty cool with all four of the divisional series going. It is crazy to see, though, that they spread them out so much during the day. I get it. They want you watching all 9 innings of each. But it's
like NBA Martin Luther King Day slate.
Yeah, or Christmas, like the Christmas Day slate, where exactly. It's like starting at 11. But it is fascinating, and I get it. Yankees, Reds. I'm a Yankee fan. I live now in Red Sox territory. In fact, tomorrow is Red Sox skier day at my daughter's school. Both my daughters go there now, but my middle child is now a Red Sox fan. I don't know if I've shared that yet.
You have. It's unfortunate, and I'm sorry to hear that.
My oldest is a Yankee fan and has a Yankee sweatshirt, so she's going to wear it tomorrow, and I'm very proud of her for that. But I did not push that on her, by the way.
I like that.
What's funny is growing up in New Jersey, it was never like a specific day. You wore a sports jersey because there were so many different fans of different teams. But up here, it's Red Sox and Patriots Day, and my daughter is a Yankee Jets fan, just like her dad. So it's not fun for her when it happens. But it should be fun. It'll be a long day.
What's weirder than them spacing the games out is that one's at 2:05, then 4:15, then 7:32,
right,
and then 9:37, and it's just.
What kills me more is where I was going with that is the fact that the Yankees and Red Sox are always primetime. And the Indians, Astros is not. Like, listen, I get if you're the Major League Baseball, you're trying to get the eyeballs that will be there. This is, quote unquote, the greatest rivalry in sports. And you obviously have the New York and Boston markets. But it's a failure on their part to not grow the great talent in Cleveland and Houston as marketable assets. Like,
I agree. Saturday, too. Yankees and Red Sox at 8:15, Indians and Astros at 4:30.
It's all day games. That entire series is all day games.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy to see that.
You're right. Would you look at that? All day games, and every Yankees game is a primetime game.
Exactly right.
Every single one of them.
I get it. You put the game you think will get the most, but you're not thinking forward then. You're not growing the game beyond the rivalry you've already banked on.
It will get the most, but exactly. It gets the most because, you're doing what you can to suppress the other markets. It's like, you're not putting a game in primetime all series, even though it features the World Series champions that played in one of the most electrically exciting World Series that I've seen in a while just last season. So,
Correa, Altuve, Bregman, Springer, like those are 4 of the most electric youngsters in baseball.
Yeah. How about Verlander?
Right.
Cole. Like who else? I don't want to say Keuchel, but there's so many.
You can't turn down the Keuchel. I mean, come on.
The Keuch bike. I know it's tough. But what are you gonna do? Even Charlie Morton had been a stud, man. It is what it is. It is what it is, man. Whatever.
Uh,
Let's talk some football.
and then honestly, you have Lindor and Jose Ramirez on the other side. So let's talk some football. Let's do
And
exactly
Kluber.
that. We did get, as it happens live, Josh Gordon got his first TD with the New England Patriots. So
Oh, would you look at that? And
and
his first catch of the game must
yeah,
have been
and Tom Brady's 500th
second.
Tom Brady's 500th career touchdown. So
Is that good?
I think it's good. He's old.
Decent, right?
He's
Yeah.
old, so I'm pretty sure that's good. But he does that whole
500.
TB12 stuff. It's he has
Yeah.
electrolytes and stuff.
James White is the most underrated running
Absolutely.
back in the
I
league.
said,
It's
and
absurd. Or I won't even call him a running back,
he's
but
not.
like he is every time James White touches the ball, like he makes something happen. I know he had 2 carries right now for no yards, but even on the ground, they you got to get him at least a couple carries a game. He leads it. He's got 14 targets. It's just, Tom Brady said it. He's like, we need to get him more involved. He's just outstanding. And he's underrated. By the way, Tom Brady's 71st different career touchdown target.
Yeah.
New NFL record.
Tom Brady is Jordan for me at this point, where I hate him so much, but obviously you have to respect the career he has had and
He's definitely top 20 all time.
Yes, I would agree with that. It's hard not to agree with that, but still not the best.
I was joking. I was saying top 20 at his position.
I know.
Yeah, just hate the guy.
He is.
I don't hate him as much now that the Eagles won, though.
Oh, absolutely,
and beat him
this year, though. You have to have Rodgers ahead of him talent-wise.
Yeah, I guess.
I
don't know. Rodgers has looked.
I mean, Mahomes obviously better than Brady.
Rodgers dealing with those injuries, but he has not looked all that sharp.
Well, yeah, the knee is not good. But let's talk about this Sunday slate. We are within the bye weeks, and we'll talk through just some thoughts here. Don't want to get too deep in the weeds, going position by position per se, but there are obviously some quarterbacks in very fine spots. Ben Roethlisberger, Matt Ryan, both stand out, but they're both expensive here. Mid-tier wise, the guy's name who I keep coming up to and keep coming back to from a lineup construction perspective is Matthew Stafford against Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers. What do you see? Quick takes or thoughts overall about quarterback that are going to lead you towards certain roster constructions?
So it's kind of interesting, right? Like there are a lot of good quarterbacks this week. Okay. But the pricing is flat.
Mm-hmm.
And so, okay, for example, you have Ben Roethlisberger at 6,900 on DraftKings, Phillip Rivers at 67. And then you work your way down. Like the disparity between Rivers and Bortles is $1,200. $1,000 between Rivers and Stafford. I mean, it's just very flat quarterback pricing, which is perfectly fine. There are some cheap quarterbacks to target, though. I mean, we'll start at the top. Ben Roethlisberger against this Atlanta team whose defense has just been decimated by injuries. He is clearly a top play. I know he hasn't been stellar. I know he hasn't looked outstanding, and last week at home was a little bit concerning. But to be fair, facing Baltimore, they generally, they don't generally lose to Baltimore. But Baltimore's defense, divisional game, usually low scoring. I think, excuse me, I think that game was more an indictment on Pittsburgh's defensive regression than on Roethlisberger. Granted, he wasn't very good, but rarely do you see them cough up, 26 points to the Ravens, especially Joe Flacco. But I love him here, right? Atlanta's down, their safeties, they're down their top linebacker. They're just decimated, and Roethlisberger should be able to put up big numbers here. I'll get to his targets when we hit the positions because I have a couple points to make there. But I like him a lot. Obviously, like Phillip Rivers too. Dreadful Oakland run defense and pass defense. And what's interesting here is that the Chargers defense, I don't know how much Joey Bosa has to do with it, but you have to think it plays a significant role, has not been good either, Dan. I mean, they've allowed high point totals to good teams and bad teams this year. And now you're talking about a Chargers team that should probably give up a decent amount of points. So I think this game sees a lot of scoring. I wouldn't be surprised to see it rival Pittsburgh, Atlanta scoring. So I like him a lot there. Those are your two guys up top. Obviously, Matt Ryan can be thrown into the mix. I think Cam Newton will be lower owned at a similar price, and I like him. But I don't see myself going to Aaron Rodgers here for a couple of reasons. One, I don't think he's playing at 100%. I mean, he's still a stud. He still gets wins, but he's not 100%. And they could be out without Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, and Geronimo Allison, which means that their starting three receivers would be Valdez Scantling, Equinemius St. Brown, and Jamon Moore. That's crazy, right?
Yep.
That's crazy. Now, I was pretty high on Aaron Jones last week. I'd say I was there early to the party, but I think the party keeps on popping to this week.
Yep.
So Aaron Jones is also interesting. But, okay, so you have that mid-tier. Mahomes against Jacksonville. I get as a tournament lower-owned, contrarian play, but I do think that this is still a sketchy spot, even though his prices come down. Maybe we'll have some more info later on in the week, but it's still a bit of a sketchy spot on a week where there are a lot of good options. Kirk Cousins as a contrarian option, I actually like a bit more. If you get quick outs against Philly, we saw what can happen.
Oh, that Philly Minnesota game I think goes well over the 46. Like that.
I agree.
The defenses are struggling in the secondary. Yep.
I agree. And we've seen Eli Manning do it to him both times last year with those quick outs to Shepard. And now he's got a check down running back. Like if the Eagles pass rush doesn't get there immediately, Ronald Darby's playing 400 feet off the receiver. Jalen Mills is too busy wrapping the receiver up on pass interference. Like those corners are not that good. You have decent safety play, but they can be beat. So I think Cousins, if he's not dealing with a ton of pressure and gets the ball out quickly, you could see him and Thielen have big games, maybe Rudolph too, but they are pretty good against tight ends, the Eagles. And then just the last guys here, Matthew Stafford against Green Bay is really enticing. They've had a more balanced approach this year with more running the ball, even though Curry Johnson's not getting the work he should be. But even so, Stafford's still averaging over 41 passes per game. And I think this game, even if Rodgers doesn't have his weapons, should favor Stafford. He's going to have to throw the ball, and I think he puts up good numbers. He's also really cheap. I mean, he's $5,700, the same price basically as Case Keenum and Blake Bortles, who actually has a decent matchup against Kansas City. And I know Andrew likes Russell Wilson against the Rams. I don't hate it because it's Russell Wilson playing at home, but I don't think I see myself going there just because there's such good value at quarterback and the pricing is so damn flat.
Yep. Listen, there's always going to be cheap quarterbacks you can go to. I think Wilson's plenty fine this week, and you'll see pretty flat ownership too. You talk about flat pricing, you're going to see between 8 and 17% for a lot of these quarterbacks as we go into some of these larger tournaments. But that Philly Minnesota game, I think is one I'll probably have a bit more of than I expected when the sort of schedule came out. If I looked at week 5 and saw those two teams going against one another, I would have not thought to go there. But the two defenses, obviously Minnesota's defensive line is ravaged by injuries and whatever's going on with Griffin. It's a lot there. So I like Wentz and Cousins both. You made mention of Stafford, who I have a bit of construction around right now. And then I don't know if I like Russ here. I get it. But I don't know that I'm going to have to go that cheap as of yet. So I think it's going to be probably 0 Russ for me this week. What about the rest? Again, you'll have the game plan Sunday morning with Ben and Lofty. You'll have some shows on Saturday with Alex and Chris Spags, along with Evan Silva for On the Contrary, which is our look on some of the contrarian plays. If you look across the skill positions, running back, wide receivers, and tight ends here, Dave, what are some of the names that pop out? I know Joe Mixon looks to be a go here against a Miami team that's been terrible, and Gio Bernard most likely out. I know that's a name that a lot of people are talking about. Devonta Freeman is back in that Pittsburgh game at 6,500. Obviously, Gordon is in a great spot against the Oakland Raiders. Lots of running backs that you can like. Who are tops of your list across all the skills positions?
Yeah, and by the way, the whole Everson Griffin thing is really weird, man.
Oh, it's really weird.
Really, really strange. And look, it's mental illness, right?
Yep.
It's I say weird, but it's sad. It's actually really sad to see his mental health deteriorate like that. It really is. You just hope the guy gets better because you don't want that for anybody, even if we're playing him in week 5. Anyway, running back, a lot of good options. I think. Oh, and by the way, you heard it here first. Tomorrow, the Eagles are going to sign Le'Veon Bell.
They're gonna.
You heard it here first.
All right.
All right. All right.
All right. Okay, sure.
All right. Moving on. Melvin Gordon against Oakland.
I could just say no, they're not, but I dig it. Sure.
But you'd be wrong. That's the thing. You'd be wrong.
Sure.
That's the true thing, dude. It's happening.
All right.
I have inside sources.
All right. Let's have some fun.
Let's have some fun, eh? Number 26 in that black and green.
What is it called? What's the Kelly green? Is that the
Kelly green,
yeah,
baby?
Kelly
I love the Kelly green. I got.
Oh, it's a good color. Yeah.
My favorite jersey is my Brent Selleck Kelly green, man. He never got the respect he deserved.
Oh, by the way, Eagles tight ends this week. Well, I pick. If it's Ertz or whomever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd like.
What do you like about that?
They are seeing some of the largest target share of any tight ends in the league so far. I think it's almost 2x or 1.5x of the second.
Carson Wentz targeted his wide receivers 5 times or 7 times in week 3. 7 times to your wide receiver. But keep in mind, however, that Alshon Jeffrey did return and saw a massive workload or market share, and he is a monster. So
it's absolutely.
It does
so
change
samples
things.
matter. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely, samples matter, and who's there and who's not. And you do have Jordan Matthews back, so there's that. But Minnesota 28th against tight ends, according to DVOA over on Football Outsiders. I just think this is a week that you get multiple tight ends with touchdowns, but multiple touchdowns out of the tight end spot for the Eagles.
Interesting. See, I would agree and disagree in that Zach Ertz for sure, but then I don't know if I'm really on the whole Goddard thing this week, but hey, we'll see, right? And I'm assuming,
maybe Le'Veon Bell lines up as a tight end and scores a touchdown.
Well, what? Come on, don't be silly. When they sign him, he won't play this week. He won't play this week. No, probably next week, maybe the next week.
It's a Pennsylvania team. They run the same offense, right? Like it's all.
Oh, of course. Yes, of course. They have the same players. All right, running backs. Melvin Gordon is just in an incredible spot. Like, there's no Alvin Kamara or Saints on this slate. We talked about it on Three Fellas Talking Football. Highly suggest you check that out. It's a good show, and we provide a lot of insight into this Sunday slate. But and more than just like top plays. But I think that Alvin Kamara not being on the slate makes a big difference because every week starts with, do I fade him and die, or play him and potentially die because he's so expensive? But if you've played him every week, you're probably up. It's just he's been outrageously good. And, now Mark Ingram's back, so you don't know what the situation is there. Thank God they're not on the slate is all I can say. Anyway, Oakland ranks 24th in run defense DVOA, or 28th, and 24th in pass defense DVOA. This is just, a bad team through and through, Dan. There's really no redeeming quality. Khalil Mack hasn't made the same impact that he normally does. And, what a silly thing for them to do. And Melvin Gordon just gets such an immense workload regardless of the way the game moves, right? Regardless of game script, even if it's flipped on its head and goes entirely unexpected, Melvin Gordon's still going to get it done, okay? He's got, 54 rushing attempts on the year, which isn't that much given 4 games, but he's got 34 targets and 24 receptions. So when you look at that, you're talking 88 looks in 4 games. So 22 looks per game. He's not even I don't even think he's one of the best backs in the league. He just gets so much work that it's fantastic. He's one of the best, but you know what I mean? Volume just has so much to do with it. So Melvin up top, great play. Christian McCaffrey just getting such a massive workload, very similar to Melvin Gordon in that, he's white, but he's also getting a ton of work regardless of whether they're playing from ahead or from behind. 28 attempts last week, 2 weeks ago, only 2 targets. 8 attempts the week before, 15 targets. So you're just getting so much out of him, and volume matters more than anything else at the running back position. So I like him as well. James Conner's interesting though, Dan. His price is up there. His last couple games have been, underwhelming. But here's the thing about James Conner. He won't tomorrow morning, he won't have to worry about Le'Veon Bell breathing down his neck. And this Atlanta team, even last year, but more so this year for obvious reasons, losing, I always want to call him Keanu Reeves. Losing Keanu Neal is a huge deal. They have just been torn apart by pass catching running backs, and it's just going to keep happening, right? It's just going to keep happening. This team, the defense is dreadful, and I expect Connor to get involved early and often. Teams have done a really good job of taking Antonio Brown not out of the game, but taking away the outside passes, the deep outside passes. His long reception this year is 27 yards, which is just crazy. And that's why you're seeing the middle of the field open up so much for Juju, for Vance, for James, for Connor, even, slipping through the line into the flat. Like, you're seeing this happen. And I think he's going to get plenty of work in this spot. So up top, above 7K, those are the guys that I have the most interest in.
And then it's Aaron Jones. I right there with you last week on Jones. You have to love.
Really? Nice. Yeah, that would make just you and me. I didn't hear his name once. I actually mentioned him on the game plan on Sunday morning, and everyone in chat and tweeted me like, you're crazy. I forget what they said. Oh yeah, I forget. It was something basically like, why in the world would you do that? But hey, it worked.
When the quarterback says.
Yeah, you saw that too.
Yeah, like when the quarterback says we got to get him the ball, and it's a quarterback who checks plays probably 40% of the time. I'm gonna be on him, and he's still sub 5K. And listen, it's just the matchup I like. I think this is a great spot again for him, where I think he'll get plenty of work and be fine.
Yeah. And he's easily the most talented back on this roster. Like Jamal Williams is not good.
No, I agree with you completely there. Outside of him, though, cheap-wise, I'll mix and match. I do think Joe Mixon is intriguing. Price tag I don't love coming off an injury, but if Gio Bernard is in fact out, which what it was sounding like at Thursday practice against Miami, I'll take some Joe Mixon shares of at least precaution and have him in some construction, see where I end up. I'm not taking any Kareem Hunt probably for the rest of the season. That's such a weird team right now with the way they're playing and the way Andy Reid's going pretty much strictly air raid and getting the talented receivers and tight ends on that team the ball.
But Hunt's had 16, 18, and 19 carries. It's just only 1 week was he actually efficient, and he's not getting passing targets.
That's the biggest thing. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and I mentioned this. I think. It might have been on three fellas that no, you know what? It was on Sirius with talking to Manny. In this day's NFL, if you're a running back and you're, priced, so he's not that expensive, right? So it's not that bad. But if you're a running back and you're at least, reasonably high priced and you're not catching the football, like the whole reason I like Zeke this year is because you look at their receiving corps and you say they have to get Zeke involved in the passing game. And fortunately, we've seen that be the case. But if you're someone like Leonard Fournette that really isn't involved heavily as a pass catcher, your value is really hamstrung when you look at guys like McCaffrey. And I will throw Bell in there, so, when he's on. Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, Saquon Barkley, right? All of those guys, okay? So if I'm looking at Kareem Hunt, believe it or not, I say, oh, well, you got Kareem Hunt against Jacksonville, 58. I have TJ Yeldon at 56.
Yep.
Fournette's ruled out. TJ Yeldon, Corey Grant's a decent little, change of pace guy, but Yeldon had 18 carries last week. If they're playing from behind, he's going to be heavily involved in the passing game. I just I think their defense is good enough so this game stays close. I could see a Yeldon game where he has 20 touches again and gets involved in the air. The game script proof running backs are really where you want to go these days, especially being that, as you mentioned, Andy Reid, but not just Andy Reid, so many teams have gone strictly to the air, and the pass run ratio is so much more lopsided than we've seen. We're on pace to see more than 200 plus touchdowns thrown more than last season. 1 year, we're on pace to see over 200 more touchdowns thrown than they were the year before. So yeah, Yeldon to me is more valuable than guys that, might get the carries but aren't getting the work through the air. And Yeldon, we know, will and is going to be on the field for the bulk of the time. That means a lot to me.
I held on to it for I think about a minute 30 there. The Fournette line was well played with going to hamstrung because of the hamstring injury. Like, that's impressive word use on your part.
It was accidental, but
hey, gotta recognize it though. I think you're spot on, and I think that volume matters. Obviously, we've talked about it plenty of times. We're not the only ones who will talk about that, but volume through the air matters, and the rules are as they are right now. Defensive players are playing two-hand touch. Offensive players are playing tackle football. And so you're really going to see gigantic scoring outputs, and wide receivers and tight ends and running backs who catch the ball out of the backfield really do matter that much more as you go through. So,
by the way, if there's a lot of people that are just refusing to give up on David Johnson, Andrew Barron, Ben Rasa, and I really don't blame them. I don't, like, you can't. But the only way you don't give up on him is if Steve Wilkes and company continue to feed him the ball. And here's why. Last week, 22 carries, 71 yards. Not good, right? Like, very inefficient. However, the game stayed close. And the only way this team keeps it close, the only way the Cardinals stay competitive, is if you're getting David Johnson 20 touches a game. And the reason I say that is, first of all, time of possession in these games where he was getting like 9-10 touches, the target or carries a game, the time of possession was so ridiculously lopsided that the defense, which isn't a terrible defense, is going to look terrible because they're on the field so much. And you have to, like, even if he's not, when Le'Veon Bell's not having an effective game, you don't see him. They stop going to Le'Veon Bell. Right. No, they keep feeding him because all you need is one. David Johnson hasn't done it yet, but all he needs is one, and he can do it 2 times or 3 times. I think at this price tag against San Francisco at 6,300, David Johnson is still a really, really spectacular play. I like him quite a bit here. I know San Francisco's run defense has been pretty serviceable over the first few weeks, but I don't expect them to pull away with the lead here, which is really important anytime you're considering David Johnson. And he's still one of the most talented backs in the league. They're only 4-point dogs, and on the road, mind you, 4-point dogs on the road, very low over under, but that actually favors David Johnson, because if it was a high over under, it would mean that they're 20-point dogs, because you're not getting a high point total from Arizona ever.
Yep. I'm off DJ until further notice. I can't go
this
there.
Week I'm going back, and I haven't been there in a while, but if there were a week to go back, this is
I understand it.
Done. It makes too much sense. 4-point dogs on the road, no matter who you're playing. For the Cardinals, that says a lot to me. I think their defense will stymie CJ Beathard and company, and David Johnson's still going to get the work. That, again, that's all that matters to me. When you have a talent like David Johnson, that's as good as David Johnson, if I tell you I think he's going to get 20, 22 touches in this game at 6,300, you're going to have some interest.
That's fair. All right, let's round it out. Some wide receivers and tight ends. Plenty of ways to go here at wideout. Obviously, top talent in Brown and Thielen. Stephon Diggs in that matchup with Philadelphia. You can talk about Alshon Jeffrey on the other side if you're thinking about even a game stack here, because I do think it's going over that 46, and I don't think it'll be highly owned. So if you want, as comparative to maybe that Pittsburgh Atlanta game, obviously. So I think that's more than reasonable. I think Manny Sanders has seen his price tag come up. Did you see JJ, Zach Reason, late round QB, had tweeted out that Manny Sanders is the only top 20 wide receiver in stats that hasn't seen a red zone target? And Sanders,
that's crazy.
But what was funny, Manny Sanders screenshotted it and put it on his Instagram.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So crazy world we live in where that's happening. But nonetheless, it did happen. There's lots here. Some names, Dave, that you have at least player pool wise, or guys that you think are in good spots to target here before we say so long for the soon to be named podcast from awesemo.com.
All right. By the way, those Vegas Golden Knights. Oh man, maybe it was a fluke. Flyers are up 5-1 midway through the second in Vegas. We'll take it. Um, Antonio Brown's always going to be in play here. Like I said, they are taking him out of the game in terms of the deep ball, and that's a bit concerning. But he's still in play. The truth is, Juju might be the better play here. If you're going to give him the middle of the field, then you take what you're given, and Juju's just doing so much in the middle of the field. Like it's crazy right now. And not only that, but Atlanta in the middle of the field has been just ravaged by injuries. So there's so much to like here, man. There's really just so much to like. I think Juju has to be considered, one of the top plays of this slate, right? You look at, by the way, if you look at where Atlanta ranks and middle of the passes in the middle of the field, they've been really bad. I think there are, let's see, one, according to DVOA, one, two, you can't sort shit here. So, oh wait, no, you can sort this. Yeah. Would you look at that? Only you can't sort, you can sort that one, not the top ones. They rank bottom 5. So that's no surprise. And I think they'll only end up being worse there. So yeah, Juju's just a stellar play, man. Mm-hmm. Just a really, really good play. And I'm going to have quite a bit of him. Aside from Juju, though, Keenan Allen against Oakland, great play there. No one trusts Oakland's D. And, Ben Rossa made a good point on Three Fellas. He said Keenan Allen's kind of in no man's land. You haven't heard him talked about all that much recently. And it's true because there's so many good receivers that have been putting up monster numbers. And he's just kind of been, he's been good, but nothing crazy. This could be the crazy Keenan Allen game for sure. This could be it. I really like him I really like him a lot as well. Him and Juju are both under 8K on DraftKings. Guys like Jones and Beckham and Brown, they're all just elite players. So if you want to play them, you can, but none of them stand out to me as guys that I'm going to be forcing into my lineup. You kept mentioning the Minnesota Philly game. I think Adam Thielen too. This is somebody that if they're, going to see or line up a lot in the slot, I think the Phillies can get beat here. I really do. Or the Eagles can get beat here.
I mean, the Phillies could get beat here too, but
yeah, the Phillies could get beat anywhere. But it's a spot where they've gotten torched quite a bit. So yeah, I'll have a decent amount of Thielen too. And I think of the expensive guys, you're not going to see a whole lot of Thielen in lineups. I have a tough time believing that. But yeah, facing Sidney Jones, who's shown us nothing yet, has a 50% completion rating against him this season. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good spot. That 50% number is not that high, but I expect it to increase because he's made a lot of really bad plays.
All right. Any cheap guys that are on your radar from a wide receiver spot? Obviously, targets have been spread out, and I know you do a bit of tracking in a spreadsheet of target share and all that. Anybody that you are thinking that could have some upside, I will go to the grave rostering Mo Sanu because he went to Rutgers University. Does feel like one of these weeks it's going to be a non-Calvin Ridley week where Sanu will shine. So I don't know if that's this week or not, but I will take the ownership savings over Ridley as his price tag continues to go up. Who do you got from a cheap end of the pool when it comes to wide receivers?
Yeah, there aren't a ton of super cheap guys this week, right? Not a lot. I think Cooper Kupp's interesting. He's not that cheap, obviously, but I did want to point him out. I think he's a good play. He's going to see Justin Coleman, who's lining up in the slot 92% of the time. And this is a Seattle team that's been crushed in the middle of the field. That's been the one spot they've really struggled. But AJ Green's interesting. He's got he's has Xavier Howard, right? He should at least.
He should, yeah.
Yeah, he should have Xavier Howard. But if we're talking cheaper guys, let's see. Oh, and the two guys I wanted to mention, I don't know who it's going to be for Detroit, but there's the Marvin Jones is way
4,700. Yep,
too cheap. You want to hear Marvin Jones last 4 games against Green Bay?
Sure.
Of
I know
course.
you tweeted it out, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here are his last 4 games against Green Bay. 4 receptions, 81 yards and a touchdown. 7 receptions, 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. 7 receptions, 76 yards. And then 6 receptions, 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he's got like 470 yards and 5 touchdowns in his last 4 games over the last 2 seasons. Granted, Kenny Golladay wasn't somebody that was getting work, wasn't even there. Get work 2 years ago, but Marvin Jones at 4,700. Like, I just don't see how he isn't a great value play here. And I think Amari Cooper is cheap enough too, where you never know when he's going to have the big game, but he has big game upside. So Amari Cooper, Casey Hayward's been very beatable, and it's surprising, but it's true. So yeah, I think he's in play as well.
I will second that Marvin Jones. That's one of the first names actually that popped off the page when I was scrolling through earlier in the week of great spot. I'm on Stafford. I will be pairing Stafford and Jones a lot and having Aaron Jones on the other side of that. So we'll be happy to go there. Defense will be fun this week. I might play some Buffalo Bills. That's going to be fun.
I said the same thing. I agree. I have some interest. There's no other good cheap whatsoever.
And as long as Mariota continues to have nerve issues, I'm going to take the risk there and take the cheap option where I can. Good stuff. We went longer than we said we would, but that is not surprising when it comes to Dave and I. Find Dave every Saturday and Sunday at Sirius 5 to 7. You can find multiple ways to get SiriusXM radio. They have deals going on at all times. You can check it out at SiriusXM.com, obviously. But he and is Manny with you Saturday, Sunday, or is he?
He is. All
right. So you may know one Manuel Laura, who is out on his raft in the Atlantic Ocean somewhere, gets signal enough to join Dave every Saturday and Sunday over there on Sirius. As always, also the deep dive will be back for NBA. We are still working out content scheduling for NBA shows. When the regular season rolls around, NHL is ongoing. You get Jake and Steve on those. Good to have Steve back in the fold. Homer Cleese, DFS, on some live shows as well. And with that said, thanks so much for listening. We'll be back Monday morning, bring you this soon-to-be-named podcast. I promise. Monday we'll have it. We'll have a name. I promise. I'll talk to you later. All right? But no, you hang up. No, you hang up.